Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Hi, I'm just an ordinary guy. Well, perhaps a little less ordinary. You see, I'm autistic, and I've got my trusty sidekick, Storm, a border collie who's in training to be a psychiatric assistant animal. We've been on quite a journey together, and today I'm going to share with you one of the wildest adventures we've had to date. I can't help but think this story belongs on r/entitled people, and it all started when we boarded a train for a ride into the city. Storm and I have been working diligently to prepare him for his role as my psychiatric assistant animal. This means getting him accustomed to different environments, sounds, and smells. For our training, we often need to ride on trains, airplanes, and visit various buildings. On this particular day, we were headed for a 1 hour and 15-minute train ride to the city. We got on a train at the front right next to the guard, as we usually do. The guard was aware of our situation and gave us a green light. I showed him the letter stating Storm was in training, and everything seemed fine. Storm, being the well-behaved collie he is, nestled himself under my legs, taking up as little space as possible, just like he was trained to do. But then came the moment that would lead to an encounter with two of the most entitled people I have ever met, Karen and her daughter, whom I've lovingly nicknamed Karen Jr. At the first stop, in walked Karen and her daughter Karen Jr., and they took the seats on the other side of the aisle, right next to me. It didn't take long for Karen Jr. to spot Storm and express her interest in him. "Mom, that man has a dog. Can I pet it?" Karen Jr. inquired. Her mother replied with something along the lines of, "Just ask." At that time, I wasn't paying much attention to their conversation as I was trying to stay focused on our training. The next thing I knew, I heard, "Excuse me," from Karen Jr. And that's when the following conversation took place. "Could I pet your dog?" "I'm sorry, but no. He's currently in training and cannot be pet." "What do you mean he's training?" "He's training to be an assistant animal, and it's very important that no one interferes with him." Karen tells her, "Come back, sweetie. Unfortunately, some people don't know how to share." I was trying my best to remain calm, but Storm could sense that my anxiety was flaring up. He got up and comforted me exactly as he was trained to do. I rewarded him with a treat and a hearty good boy, and then gave him the lay command. This is when the situation escalated. The Karen approached us. "You should be teaching him to interact with children. My daughter just wanted to give him a pat, and you rewarding him for ignoring her is just plain rude." "Excuse me? He's working and currently in training. I rewarded him for responding to me appropriately, not for ignoring your kid. Please just leave us alone." "You're lying. He's not a Labrador. They are the only dogs that are smart enough to become assistance animals. He looks like a border collie. They are just farm dogs, so quit lying." My anxiety was reaching its peak as Storm, always by my side, got up and sat on my lap to comfort and calm me down. I reached for my treat pouch to give him another reward, but Karen, with her brazen entitlement, reached in and took a treat before me. "Good boy." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed, "Get away from me!" and tears streamed down my face. The train came to an unscheduled stop at the next station, and a group of police officers boarded. Karen and Karen Jr. were swiftly moved to the next carriage, and an officer stayed with me until the next station. But this was far from the end of our encounter with the entitled Jew. Fast forward to the end of the line, and we arrived in the city. As I was talking to the guard who had actually arranged for the police to join us, Karen and Karen Jr. spotted us. Karen Jr. made a beeline for us, and just as I saw her hand reach out towards Storm, I gave him the command "other side," and he swiftly moved behind and to my left, away from her. I said, "I told you no." "Well, my mom said I could, so let me." With that, she tried to pull Storm's leash out of my hand. In that split seconds, I made a crucial decision. I dropped the lead and gave Storm the command danger. He knew what to do. He bolted and sat under a seat in the middle of the platform, safely away from the chaos unfolding around him. And then Karen entered the scene, pushing me on a shoulder. This point my flight or flight response took over. I pushed her back and she tumbled to the ground. More police officers appeared on the platform within what felt like seconds. I called for Storm and as the officers arrived, I handed them his paperwork and explained everything that had happened. It was a relief to see the authorities take swift actions. Karen was arrested for assault and interfering with a service dog. Now, here I am, writing this from inside the police station, waiting to provide a victim impact statement. I couldn't have anticipated that our journey to the city would take such a dramatic turn. But it's a story I felt compelled to share with you all. When I was a sophomore in high school, I never thought I'd see the day when I'd finally get the chance for some sweet revenge. This is a story of how I turned the tables on my high school nemesis, B, with a little help from my sister. It all started back in high school. I was just a sophomore minding my own business, trying to get through each day like any other student. There was this girl, B, who was a junior, and she had a particular interest in me, or so it seemed. Every time I turned around, there she was, staring at me with a deep and inexplicable anger. I had never even talked to her before, let alone done anything to warrant such hostility. Our classes weren't in the same room, but they were close by, and when the junior classes let out a few minutes before the final bell, they often passed through our area. That's when it all started. B would shoot me dirty looks, roll her eyes, and make snide, indirect comments. I was utterly confused because the semester had just begun and I couldn't fathom why I had become the target of her wrath. Things escalated quickly. B and her posse of friends, who I can only describe as looking like rats, began spreading rumors, making snide remarks, and even resorted to grunting noises when we crossed paths in the hallways. This continued not only through my sophomore year but also into my junior year. It felt like I was stuck in a never-ending nightmare with no way to escape. However, my senior year finally brought some relief. B and her toxic friends moved on and I could breathe a little easier. High school was bad enough, but those years have been marred by their relentless harassment. I thought I had seen the last of them. Fast forward to a few years later, I had graduated high school and moved on with my life. My older sister, S, had become the manager of a coffee shop downtown. One day, sister mentioned that she'd hired a new employee who had attended the same high school as I did. When I asked her for the new employee's name, sister provided it without hesitation. I quickly searched the name on Facebook and to my shock, it was none other than B, the girl who made my high school life miserable. I called my sister immediately and as I shared the news, she couldn't believe it. Oh my god, what the hell? That girl had always been late for work, sister exclaimed. She had given B a warning for her tardiness but let it slide when B explained that she desperately needed a job due to financial difficulties. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of it all. B was struggling to make ends meet while I was thriving. It was an opportunity too good to pass up, and my sister and I concocted a plan to exact revenge on my high school tormentor. The plan was simple but deliciously satisfying. Sister informed me that B was scheduled to work a particular shift, and it happened that the other employees on that shift were friends of mine. They too had their share of unpleasant encounters with B and they were eager to join in on our plan. They couldn't stand B, and she had always acted differently when the manager was around. The day of reckoning arrived, and there I was wearing my sister's coffee shop uniform, pretending to be the new manager. My sister, who was hiding nearby, kept a close eye on us. As I introduced myself to the employees, I couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. B walked in, oblivious to who I really was. When our eyes met, I couldn't suppress a mischievous grin. I approached her and introduced myself, playing the role of the stern manager and began asking her some tough questions about her job. Her face displayed a mixture of surprise and confusion. Then I asked a question that had been burning inside me for years. "Do you remember me?" B hesitated for a moment but eventually responded, "Yeah, but, the past is the past, right?" I could hardly contain my amusement as I confronted her about all the torment she had put me and my friend through. At that moment, one of my friends from high school came out, introduced herself, and asked B if she remembered her as well. B's shock was palpable as she realized that we were all connected. I pressed her for an explanation of why she had treated us so horribly, and her response was far from satisfactory. B started hurling insults at me and my friend, calling us witches and expressing her disdain for the job. She claimed she had never liked it anyway, despite it being her third job. Her track record wasn't exactly stellar, as she had been fired from her previous 2 jobs and ironically had listed them on her resume. Her frustration boiled over and she began tossing objects around the coffee shop, eventually smashing a large vase on the ground. That was the moment my sister, who had been closely watching the drama unfold, decided to make her grand entrance. She arrived with a police officer who also happened to be her boyfriend. Sister firmly informed me that she was fired, and the police officer, with a stern voice, began reciting the Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent." The look on Peggy's face as a police officer placed handcuffs on her was priceless. The entire coffee shop watched as she was led away, and the satisfaction I felt was immeasurable. Finally, B was getting a taste of the consequences. Later that day, my sister, the other employees, and I joined forces to clean up the mess B had left in her wake. My sister, despite not being responsible for the destruction, paid for the damages out of her own pocket as a gesture of goodwill to her loyal employees who had been caught up in the drama. She offered her apologies for what had transpired, even though she had been working undercover. A few months later, I heard the satisfaction news that B had been charged with thousands of dollars in damages and sentenced to 100 hours of community service. The charges included destruction of property and harassment, among other things. My sister, having pressed charges against her, also made sure to highlight the fact that B had been a bully. Not just to me, but to many others, including my friends. This happened about 7 years ago. I, male 29, used to work in a store whose name sounds a lot like those cops that ride in planes. On this particular day, I was at the register when a well-dressed guy and 3 women walked in. Each of them took a cart and started walking around picking things out. I was known for my no-nonsense attitude at the register. You throw money at me, give me attitude, whatever. I'll do it right back to you. So when a coordinator came to me 30 minutes later and asked me to assist the guy and his group on my register, I already knew we were in for a fun time. They rolled up with 3 carts full of clothes, and not just any stuff. We're talking shoes and boots that cost $300 to $800, expensive handbags, coats, and more. I was just there thinking, oh heck. They walked up and I started scanning. All the while, these ladies were being unpleasant. Finally, I got through it all, and the total came up to about $3,000. The guy reached into his coat and pulled out a wad of cash, all crisp $100 bills. Immediately, I knew something was off, so I took the money and went to the machine to check it. The first bill didn't pass, and neither did the second. So I turned back around and told the guy that I couldn't accept the money. Before I even had a chance to fully explain, one of the women cut me off and told me to take the money and do my damn job. Cue malicious compliance. I said, you know what? You got it. Let me get the manager so he can help. See, at our discretion, we can decline a formal payment. For example, if 2 of your cards get declined, you've got to use cash. If your cash doesn't pass, you have to use a card. Or we can just tell you to go away. But if we suspect you're using fake money, we have to try and keep you there while we get the cops. So, I went to the manager, cash in hand, and told him what was going on. He went to the office and checked the money. Now, the guy was nervous, but just imagine his panic when 2 cops walked in and headed straight for us. His horrified face made my day. The cops took my statement, and the next thing you know, all 4 of them were getting arrested. One of the women was screaming and cursing at me while I told her, in the most innocent voice I could pull off, "You told me to do my job." Hey everyone, I need your opinion on something that's been bothering me lately. I love my husband dearly, we have a beautiful life together with 2 amazing children. I don't ask for much because I'm more than capable of doing or buying for myself. But there is this one thing that's been nagging at me, and I need to know if I'm the jerk here. When we got engaged, there was no grand proposal. No surprise on one knee. It wasn't really his style, and I understood that. We both knew we wanted to get married because we talked about the life we wanted to build together. We started building it. So it was never really a question of whether we would get married, but what bothered me was that it was like pulling teeth to get a ring. Finally, after some nudging, I got the ring. But we decided to have a simple courthouse wedding. Neither of us wanted anything extravagant, and we were on the same page about that. We always said that we didn't want a big wedding, but we did plan to have a reception for family and a honeymoon. The reception happened and it was lovely. Our families were thrilled to celebrate with us and we had a great time. But the honeymoon, the one thing I truly wanted other than a happy, healthy marriage and children, never happened. Now, I understand that it wouldn't be a true honeymoon as it's been a couple of years and we have 2 beautiful children. But my desire was for a nice, relaxing honeymoon meant just for the 2 of us. I longed for some quality time together, away from the daily hustle and bustle. A few days ago, I mustered up the courage to bring up the honeymoon topic again. My husband didn't outright reject the idea, but he didn't seem enthusiastic to discuss it either. That left me quite upset. I got frustrated and admittedly a bit angry. I want to clarify that I am always mindful not to say anything hurtful because words have a powerful impact. However, I did express my feelings and I think it's only fair. I mentioned that I've done a lot for our family and I didn't even insist on having a huge wedding. My only wish was a honeymoon and I believed I deserved it. I believe it's essential to communicate our needs and desires in a relationship. I want our bond to remain strong and I thought a honeymoon could help us rekindle our connection. Now here is where I'm struggling with whether I'm the jerk. I've decided that I'm planning a honeymoon with or without him. I'm more than willing to travel alone if he's not willing to plan it with me. Of course, at any moment he could express his desire to go and I will be thrilled. But until then, I've resolved to do this alone. So am I the jerk here? And now some comments on the post. Someone saying, "I suppose I have to say you are the jerk because there is absolutely no reason to call this a honeymoon except for the purpose of digging at him. Simply put, you did not have a honeymoon. You could have demanded one at the time, but you didn't. It just didn't happen. It's too late to have a honeymoon. This is a vacation, and yes, you can take yourself on a vacation yourself as long as you run it by him. But calling it a solo honeymoon is just stirring the pot." Another commenter adds, "You are the jerk. A honeymoon without one of the partners is oxymoronic. Just call it a holiday or a vacation." A third commenter goes with, "Everybody's a jerk. Your husband for lacking any kind of follow-through on anything, and you for insisting that you're taking a honeymoon alone. Well, that's not a honeymoon, that's just a trip. You're taking a trip. Here is the thing. You said it was like pulling teeth to actually get engaged to him and he never actually proposed. So it fits that it's also like pulling teeth to plan a honeymoon/vacation with this man. He's the same guy you married. He showed you who he was before you married him. For better or worse, you chose to marry him anyway."
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.